everybody, welcome to my channel, Time for Truth. My name's Christina, and today we're going to be talking about all kinds of interesting things. The first of which is this little cup that I happened to find at the thrift store the other day because I really do love all the different kinds of mugs. This is a milk glass mug, and it was actually the General Foods Corporation. I talked about that yesterday in that newspaper article about that my father had gone out of the military to go work for General Food Corp. And so it talked about he was a salesman for General Foods Corp. That's what that is, General Foods Corp, probably from the same era. Little pedestal mug with the milk glass. Cute as can be. You can find the best stuff at thrift stores, and this one is a keeper. Not a jumper, it's a keeper. So, how's everybody doing today? Hope your week is going good. My week's been very good thus far. It's only Tuesday. Dealing with, all the kinds of things that everybody has to deal with from day-to-day basis. Plus, continuing to try and deal with the medical community, albeit on a much lesser level, which is a good thing. So the less doctors involved, the better. So eat an apple. So anyways, I wanted to follow up on the, vintage photos and the old time cars and all of the things from back in the day, that helped me to understand where I came from and, what makes me tick. So one thing that makes me tick is a good cup of Java. So there you go. I've worked at many different coffee shops along the way. That's so good. Back before there was a national chain and suddenly making coffee, you're a barista, which is great. Everybody deserves to have a title for what they do, a job description. But I actually worked at a few standalone coffee shops, and the best way to get to know the community is to work at the coffee shop. I really enjoyed all the places where I worked, making Java, drinking Java. And now I don't drink Maxwell House. I actually drink a mixture of, Taster's Choice, Ghirardelli chocolate, sugar, of course, and then whipped half and half, and it's delicious. So I learned not to buy the national chain coffee, Starbucks, when I was commuting to New York City every day, to Manhattan from Pennsylvania. Oh, I needed a lot of coffee. But my drink, let me see if I can remember what my drink was back then. A venti quad shot mocha breve extra hot with whipped to go. Venti quad shot. That's the large with 4 shots. Yeah. I think it cost $7 back then. That was in the I was trekking to Manhattan 2005, 2006, working as a paralegal right in downtown Manhattan. Took my daughter and a friend of hers into the city for the day. Took them to, what was the name of that place? It was an alien place. I'll think of it. But in the meantime, coffee and coffee houses. We have a lot of little country stores around by us. Not a lot of them anymore, but a few. And you walk into those places and it's all the locals sitting there, chatting about what's happening in the community, the heartbeat of the town. So, there's a lot going on in every little town, in every little family, in every little life. And the best we can do is just manage our own, one day at a time. So I'm going to show some old pictures again today. Talk about my mom, Janice. Here's a picture of her when she was a young woman next to her father, who was an elderly man at that time. But there they are. That's Janice and her father. And he had left. He had left the family. His name was Raymond. My grandpa. And I got to go and visit with him a lot. We'd get sent. In fact, my brother and I got put on a Greyhound bus from Richmond, Virginia to Louisville, Kentucky. I still have the Greyhound bus ticket somewhere over there. But he married a beautiful woman when he was overseas in Germany, Marie. And she was lovely, just a lovely lady. She was a powerhouse. They had a nice home in Kentucky outside of Louisville. And she had a beauty salon in her basement. And she was chock full of the ladies with the blue hair coming in all day long. She was up before the sun, and she was down there doing the ladies' hair. And as soon as we would come to visit, that's the first thing we wanted Marie to do was give us a haircut. And she would, every single time. She had an old-time Coke machine down there in her beauty shop. Yeah, the kind you open the top and slide it down the rail. Yeah. So my grandpa, I don't really know the whole story. I mean, he left the family when he was born in Kentucky. Word is that he was American Indian heritage. Guthrie was his middle name. And yeah, so he and Marie lived in a nice home outside of Louisville, Kentucky, where Fort Knox is. So he used to take us over to the base because my grandpa was also a military man, and he had served this great nation. And so he'd take us over to Fort Knox to the base. I have pictures of me on the diving board because, of course, I love to dive. The higher, the better. I was a jumper. Okay, and so look at this. This is a picture of my mom. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any dates. Look at her. Is that fantastic? It's amazing how, in spite of hardship and poverty and everything else, she was making her own clothes, and her mom was making the clothes too back then. But as she evolved into just a beautiful lady, they used to wear the hair pieces back then. This was around the time that she was working as a realtor, I believe, in maybe in Virginia, Chester, Virginia. Yeah. And so then, of course, this was one of my favorite old-time pictures of my mom and her hairdo. Just check that out. That's the time we were living in L.A. I looked up where that was, Bellflower, Belltown. It was inland from Culver City even. And here's another one of those with the Olin Mills. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And then as time evolved, you know, with her family, and there was all of us. By this time, Dave had come along, so that means we might have been in Germany still at this time. I'm not sure. Dave was still just a wee one. Yeah. And my mom, I think that was a wig she had on in that picture. Hilarious. But she went on to do real estate, and this was one of the pictures that when she cut her hair short. So that was in the 70s when the pixie doos were in with the ladies. In fact, I made I decided, you know, since YouTube won't let me do music, I'll get, you know, my video won't get uploaded or whatever. I actually made a sound list to go with my videos. So today's sound list, and you can look up these on YouTube and listen. California Dreamin', the Mamas and the Papas. Do You Know the Way to San Jose? That's so like that era. For What It's Worth, Buffalo Springfield, Brown Eyed Girl, Van Morrison. That's in honor of my daughter. Light My Fire by The Doors, Say a Little Prayer. Only Aretha can sing that. Me and Bobby McGee, Janis Joplin. And of course her song, Mercedes-Benz. I have to find that Mercedes my mom used to tool around in. It was one of those, I don't even know what, it was cute. What other songs? Katie Tunstall, Black Horse and a Cherry Tree. These Boots Were Made for Walking, Nancy Sinatra. Blondie, Heart of Glass. I'll be talking about that song. I used that for one of my talent shows and danced. Never danced before in my life and really haven't since, but I did then. Dixie Chicks, Not Ready to Make Nice. So yeah, there's the sound list, the song list for today. And moving right along, I found this little gem. Back in the day when you would go to a neat restaurant in a, tourist area, they had like nice little things where your picture's taken. The back picture is gone. That might have been via the divorce, but this one remained. And there's my mom and dad. Look at that. Looking pretty snazzy. Yeah. This was at Pat O'Brien's, 718 St. Peter Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. Even gives the manager's name, George Oshner. That cracks me up. When I worked at the Heidelberg restaurant when I first came back from Germany, I was riding my bike to that job in the evenings after my day job. That was in Old Town Alexandria, the Heidelberg restaurant. The manager there, he was like that. I mean, he took pride. That restaurant was like a ship. You were a troop. You were running it. He loved me. Located in the heart of New Orleans, in the building and courtyard erected in 1791 as the first Spanish theater in the United States. It's the home of the famous Hurricane Punch. Hurricane parties. They have launch parties and hurricane parties in New Orleans too, I guess. The picture's $2. If you get a matching photo, it's 50 cents. If you want the postcard, it's 75 cents. And if you want it mailed, that's going to cost you too. Order extra photos within 60 days by date and number. So their number was 1317. Isn't that an awesome photo? Fantastic. And Pat O'Brien's may still exist. Look at the artwork though. Isn't that fantastic? Yeah. So moving right along, oh my goodness, here we are, homemade dresses. At least mine was, which I loved. My brother Jim, look at Dave. He was the cutest little thing. I have a bunch of pictures of where, like, I assumed ownership apparently of Dave and was a little caretaker. My sister's braids, adorable. Yes, what a nice looking family. I didn't have a fly on my hair in that picture. Just braces, because I had a big, like, overbite. I hadn't seen this picture in a long time. No dates on this one. And then around that time, though, we did have, in 1977, I'm going to say that's 75, 76. These were our dogs in that era. Are they adorable? Because this was, they were born in 1976 because they were called He-Bi and She-Bi, which is for the bicentennial year. So He-Bicentennial and She-Bicentennial. He-Bi and She-Bi. Somebody wrote it. Hilarious. And then here's, I'm going to do a flashback to when my mom was the PTA president. I would say that this was probably 68 or 69. I don't even know. We might have been living over in Germany still then. But apparently they were doing a brush your teeth campaign. Because there's the ladies. Always have to have the man watching over to make sure everything's done the way they want it done. Brushing your teeth. Look at my mom. She's gorgeous. Prettiest one there, in my opinion. Oh, and then guess what I found? I found the actual real photos of the skydiving. I'm going to show them. They're amazing. There's a whole stack of them. I worked and went through some old stuff yesterday too. Found some of the old photo books that I didn't give to my cousin so that her mother could take them all to the dump. I still can't believe that. I mean, I still cannot believe that my aunt is so vindictive of a woman that she would take all the family photos to the dump. And I don't have a picture of her yet, but it'll come. I have a picture of my other aunt. She was fantastic. I'll show that later. Here's those old-timey photos again. This was taken by photography by Richard A. UHDE. box 471 in Seaford, Delaware. And that's my mom right there. And you can see there was a whole event. Check out that lady. You know, she's got some stories to tell. And the old sign in the background. And this is the area where I live now. Hilarious. Check that out. My mom and dad. Look at those old cars too. Good looking guy. Look at her. Gorgeous. I mean, the vitality of youth. Sorry there's such a glare on this. It's hitting off of my studio light over there, which hits on my glasses too. But all right, and then here's like everything was a starburst. Check out the advertising in the background for the motel. Isn't that great? And my mom looking all happy. That little girl's like, yeah, I'm going to be a jumper one day too. Awesome. This is a good one. Now, my mom, she was a looker. When she took my grandmother and I on the trip to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, those Italian men, they loved my mother. My grandmother couldn't get over it. Those Italian men, they flirted with my mom. She would just laugh them off. But look at his face. He's like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. Here she is getting into her jumpsuit. Hilarious. Oh, she's ready. Check that out. Is that so badass? And there's the plane in the background. Now, my nephew, he's recently been married, and he's in the Air Force, and he married a beautiful woman. She's a jumper too, because he was a jumper. He's got his jump book. Now look at my mom. I just noticed. Yeah, she got a fag in her hand too. It was all the rage back then. That's probably why I became a smoker, because both my parents were smokers. And then I smoked in front of my daughter, and she became a smoker. But she's not a drinker. So I cut that. That got stopped. All right, here's an action shot. There they are, getting the shoot ready. Yeah, that's just fantastic. And then that article that I read about yesterday, that the plane was furnished by the State Line Motel. I think that's what they called it, the State Line Motel. Yeah, the State Line Motel. And Ed Rainwright, he apparently donated the plane. So here's what they were jumping out of. Is that incredible? And this is also photography by that same person. But these are the originals. Yeah, and here she is. That's Janice Pratt coming in for a landing. Oh, floating through the sky, easy as pie, that's what she says. It's so great that there was a photographer there. And this is a great shot too, because you got the plane dropping her and her floating. This one's kind of out of blur, but you can see initially her jump before the chute is opened. Yeah, baby. Up. I believe she landed in the cornfield. Isn't that great? I just think that's so fantastic. So those are the, that's kind of the brief history of my mom and her antics. Doing what she loved to do, and that was called, you know, living her life after being raised, you know, in poverty, and her and her sisters being abused by men in the family. And, you know, she continued to sew dresses. Look at this picture. This is in Germany. And there's my mom and dad. Look at that dress. Look at her. She made that dress. I still have it. She was a tiny little thing back then too. But these are the kind of events that they went to. Yeah. I mean, gorgeous. And that gown is a fabric that is iridescent. So whichever way you move, it's a bit of a different color. And I still have her pearls. her beautiful double strand of pearls. Yeah, nice. And those military functions are really something to see. They truly are. They're interesting, they're dramatic. All the men are in uniform, dress blues. Really, it is something to behold. And I'm glad that my mom got to participate in that. And enjoy that and do what she also wanted to do, and that was to raise a family. And that's, where her greatest joy laid, was in raising her kids. And she did it without her husband there for a lot of the time, because as this article talked about when I read it yesterday, he was off, with his career, serving this great nation, in his capacity as a military officer in the Army. So, as the saying goes, if the military wanted you to have a family, they'd issue you one. Same goes for a wife. So otherwise they get just dragged around for the service members, benefit. Supporting cast is basically what it is. Here's me. This was in San Diego. I'd been sent down there to go to rehab before the rest of the crew got down there to be at the Presidio. And a bunch of us got released from rehab to go on a camping trip. Because we were all just trying to figure out what was going on in life. And then this was in 1983. So this was before I moved down to Florida, to Cocoa Beach, Florida. My brother was still living down in Richmond. My parents and two siblings were still in Germany. They'd come back for the holiday. And so there was one of the last pictures of all of us. I guess my father took this picture. I guess the cameras didn't have the automatic, thing back then. At any rate, yeah. Yeah, that was that. And, through a lot of this time, I was sick. I wasn't well. I mean, I had a undiagnosed femoral hernia that would lay me out. In fact, I was overdosing on Bayer aspirin back then for the pain. And I actually printed out when the hospital discharged me, saying that I was psychosomatic, basically calling me a mental case. This is a document right here. My mom, she was awesome. I have the whole medical file sitting right over there. In the military, it's whoever's there is who you see when you go to the doctor. You don't have a primary care doctor because you're traveling. Nobody knows who you are, where you land. Is whoever's there assigned for their tour of duty is who sees you. So I got bounced around a lot by these military doctors because nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. So I was 19 years old at the time of this hospitalization. The history is that I had a 2.5-year history of intermittent episodes, incapacitating lower left quadrant abdominal pain. The story always stayed the same because it was always the same pain. It wasn't always, but it was constant. What it did was it would flare, and then I'd be curled up in the corner crying, throwing up, pain. And I got accused of drug seeking. I'm 19 years old, for heaven's sakes. I'm not drug seeking. I don't even know about that. Like, whatever. At least I didn't know about prescription meds. I knew about, street drugs, marijuana, things like that. But nicotine, alcohol, certainly surrounded by that. So anyways, yeah, they show here that, everything was in the normal limits, that in 1980, so, 2 years ago, I'd had a laparoscopy and other interventions, other tests that were all within the normal limits. The patient was discharged to be followed by the psychiatrist. That's what they did. They sent me to the psychiatrist. She was discharged with a diagnosis of abdominal pain, probably psychosomatic in origin. And that's what I was discharged from the hospital. And then when I was in college in Munich, that was when I had another episode that sent me by ambulance because my pod mates in the dorm were freaking out. I'm throwing up in pain, crying, curled up, they call the ambulance, and I go to Augsburg, and that's where they diagnosed actually the femoral hernia, fixed it. But it was a real hellish experience going through that and being accused of being crazy. Wild. So that gave me a general distrust of the medical community from a very early age. And then as a woman, you still have to contend with it because you have to get things done. And so that will bring me around to the old pictures that I showed yesterday. I knew that I had some old train pictures, number one, because I found a whole stack of them at a thrift store over in Delaware towards Salisbury. But another thing that I found at a thrift store, and I had started cataloging them because these are, in fact, I'm not sure which ones of these might be living versus they actually took pictures of like dead people back in the day and they would prop them up. So here's the back of this little photo. And look at these old time. Yeah, check that out. These are all from Philadelphia. This one's Wilmington, Delaware. So they're not all from Philadelphia. I thought they were. This one's also from Wilmington. Now, these are photographed by different, this is Garrett's, and then this is Joseph Jeans in Wilmington, Delaware. Look at the photos from back then. Isn't that awesome? I wish I knew the story of these people. I started investigating as much as I could to see, but one of the things that I found out is that sometimes they will use chairs as props to hold up. But these, I think, are all living people. There might be one that I haven't come to yet. And these are the backs of each of these proofs. And now this one is using a similar prop. Doesn't look to be the same person, but you can see it's the same chair. And then that. Same chair, different dress, seemingly different person. But one can never be real sure with these. I would need one of those little magnifying. And then these are the ones that I started doing a little background check on because these actually are valuable because they have the actual old stamp from where they just would send them just like this. Yeah. People were pretty serious back then. Didn't get a lot of smiles in the photos. Here's another one. This one I started the research on it because it has a proprietary 2-cent stamp. So it has some interesting characteristics to this in my research, showing that it's a specific photographer out of Philadelphia on this one. I'll try and switch it around there. And then you have the stamp. I think I'm holding that upright, yeah. That stamp, which the stamp alone, at the time that I researched all of this, and I didn't put a date on it, the stamp alone is $350. That was the value on just the stamp. Now I have a whole stamp collection over there of things that I haven't looked up, but also the fading back. So apparently a single person image with partial clothing and a fade out face only has more value than a longer shot. Interesting. Never knew these things. And also the overcut stamp. You can see how the perforated edge here. All of these things add value. Which, who knew? That's one of the things that I love about thrift stores and finding things. I walk into a thrift store, I'm in heaven. I could spend hours in there. Hours just looking at everything. And this one is also very interesting. This is Horning and Brother, ground floor gallery, number 820 Arch Street, Philadelphia. Negatives are retained, duplicates furnished at any time. This one has a bank check stamp. So there are certain, on the back of this one, this bank check stamp. And then here she is. Look at that. Look at her attire. The gloves, the buttons, the headwear. Fascinating, isn't it? So I'm amazed at these. I'm still researching all of them because I am going to start doing my sales again with, I don't know, probably won't use Etsy because they still don't know what a woman is. So I'm not going to give them my money. And then here's, oh, this one has here's another one of those that has that fade out and the partial clothes with a fade out background. This one also has a proprietary stamp. This is a it would be William H. Owen, Evansville, Wisconsin. Negatives preserved. Additional copies from the plate from which this picture is taken can be had at any time if desired. All right, and so there's the fade out. Her face is so interesting. Can only imagine the story. And here's the back of that card. And there's that stamp. Yeah. Oh, so with the close-up, here's our fingernail polish. I think this is day 3 now of 1 coat a day. What do we have? We do have a coat. All right, so that's my little like take into the world of old photos and actually daguerreotypes. I'm totally not pronouncing that right, but daguerreotypes. Daguerreotypes is what these are called, and they're highly collectible. So I really, really enjoy all of the things that I run through and look at to make these little presentations on YouTube. It is bringing me so much joy and happiness. And one of the things that my mom used to do is when she would say there's a special occasion, she'd bring out her bell. Good vibes. We're going to be making plans to go to Pennsylvania on one of our spring trips. It's called Ringing Rock State Park. Is going to be in the area, and it's awesome. I took my daughter there. It's up by the Delaware Water Gap. Lots of recreation, hiking, camping, biking, all the things. And it's actually a glacier field of boulders in Pennsylvania. And so everybody along the hike, it's out near Ricketts Glen State Park and Ringing Rock State Park, all of that out there. Beautiful area. But you take your hammers and you go out there on the boulder field, and all of the rocks have unique ringing tones. It's like being outside in a wonderland of musical tones when people are out there. And the boulder field goes pretty far, not far from the Appalachian Trail. So lots of good things to come. Everybody stay healthy and happy. Do what you need to do to take care of your own mental health on a daily basis. Don't let anybody take away your peace or your harmony. And you can always have an attitude like my aunt. Is she awesome? Check her out. That's my Aunt Pat. She was a totally awesome lady. You can see our family picture in the background at her house. She taught me so much. She was really cool. And I would have loved to have had a closer relationship with my Aunt Pat. She was one of those that was working hard and being mistreated by the men. Her husband was the one who was found with the child rapist, face down in a culvert, shot in the back of the head. They were both working at the liquor store. So she went through a lot in her lifetime. And she owned her own little business there in Salisbury. You know what she did? Because I spent summer with her a couple times. In fact, I was there that time when that whole murder thing, my grandmother heard about it on the radio. That's how they found out, on the radio. My grandmother comes rushing into the room and clicks off the radio because she recognized the names that were being talked about. So at any rate, my Aunt Pat, she was amazing. She ran her own business. She had her own cleaning business. She cleaned commercial businesses, and she took me with her. Same way like I took my daughter when I had a dog walking business. Actually, I didn't have the business. I was the dog walker, working for the lady who had the business. But I would take my daughter. We took the dogs out and along the rivers and out in the fields and this and that. So my aunt, when she had her businesses and I was there, she took me with her. And we cleaned the businesses, emptied the trash, wiped the desks. No computers back then, just the phones. Had to sanitize the phones. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was her livelihood. And she was respected in the town of Salisbury, Maryland, in the business community. Yep. Aunt Pat. She was something to behold. She taught me how to do the things at night where you twist your hair and then put them in the bobby pins. And then you wake up in the morning and you've got this, like, hairdo. So anyways, yeah, Aunt Pat. Love the old pictures. But just look at that. Is that wild? Yeah, she was rocking it. Sadly, she died of a stroke. Yep. She was a neat lady. Aunt Pat. So anyways, family's amazing. We should all value the family that we have. We don't get to pick them. But if they're not being nice and they're waging warfare on you, then, you should definitely not engage. And in my next broadcast, I intend to talk about how my attorneys knew about the strife in the family. They had been provided with an email directly from my mom from 2010 discussing the dysfunction in the family. And I'm also going to talk about fun things like, things about family parties and, what it was like growing up in a military family, the other parts of it that weren't, kind of horrific and bad. So that will be the next broadcast. Thanks everybody for joining in with me as I look back on all of these kinds of things. And I'm also in the interim going to be finding my old train photos. Oh my gosh, I looked for them, but I couldn't find them, but I did. Look, here's a picture that I took when we were in Harper's Ferry. We waited and waited and waited. There were even passengers waiting for the train. They said, yeah, the train will be here anytime. So we went through the train little house waiting area with all the history. As soon as we left to go up the hill to the church, here comes the train. This is by us. I took this photo because now all the trains are no longer in service, and now it's the rails to trails. So now this is along the bike path, and we ride along the bike path. This is the old train house, the train depot. And this is just a small picture of it from one side, but I liked it with the table and the boarded up windows. Masonry. They masonried those windows. But the building, the structure itself, I have pictures of that too. It's amazing. And it has the coolest wind vane on top of it. It currently is occupied by a bakery and a brewery. But all of that's changing as they're doing changes in Delaware by us with the infrastructure because we're having huge population growth. And then, but this is one of the train photos. This is a copy of the original, and I have the original of this. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. And on the back of each of these, it told what it actually was, what the train. This one happens to be multiple units of N and K. I don't think that's right. New 2,500 horsepower diesel locomotive fleet pulls loaded coal train through West Virginia mountainside. It's the Norfolk and Western Railway. And this was from the Association of American Railroads, Transportation Building, Washington, D.C. So these were official photos that I found in this thrift store. I'm going to find them all and share them with you because they are amazing. But my grandpa was a coal miner. Remember I showed you the picture of him in the beginning? Yeah, he was a coal miner, but he got out of Kentucky. And that was when my mom, when they moved to Salisbury, that her father had left the family. So, yeah, you know, I guess I'm a coal miner's granddaughter. How's that? Coal miner from West Virginia and Kentucky. Like, we were Appalachian. That's the blood that runs in us. We're fighters. We don't give up. We find a way. And the blood of my maternal side, it runs deep in me. And you don't mess with those women. They'll do you in. And that's what I'm doing on my YouTube channel, doing a little in. And bringing the receipts. So thanks for listening to my chat. Hope everybody has a nice day. I'll be back again probably tomorrow, maybe sooner, because I have more pictures that I've printed out and more things to talk about. So everybody take care. Have a great day. Keep on rocking, and don't ever let anybody blow out your flame. Stay on fire. Keep it going. All right, catch you later. Bye.